anyone at all from Shirley Temple to Amy Semple is equally understood. Go out and try your luck, you may be Donald Duck. Hooray for Hollywood.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are listening to a Radulich and Broadcasting premiere podcast. Damn you, Hollywood. And I'm your host, Mark Radulich. Yay! Frankly, I'm the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified as well. So yes, this is Damn You, Hollywood. Robert Winfrey has taken the night off. He's actually, he started watching The Irishman about a year ago. He's still watching it. He's trying to get it finished up for next Tuesday. So he couldn't be here because he's still watching the all 106,000 hours of Martin Scorsese's The Irishman. But he'll be back next Tuesday for St. Patrick's Week here on the Radulich and Broadcasting Network. Don't you worry about that. But since we are talking SpongeBob, Sponge on the Run, which made its debut on Paramount Plus last Thursday, as a matter of fact, along with Raya and the Last Dragon and Chaos Walking and a whole bunch of other movies that Coming to America, a whole bunch of other movies that came out. We are going to review that for you tonight, and here to do that with me, the question remains, who lives in a pineapple under the sea? Alexis Hejna, absorbent and yellow and porous is she. Alexis Hejna. If nautical nonsense be something you wish, Alexis Hejna, then drop on the deck and flop like a fish. Ladies and gentlemen, from Honeysuckle Rose Creations, Alexis Hejna.
Okay, apparently I need to schedule an appointment with my doctor to check for jaundice if I'm yellow.
Yeah, you might have the hepatitis. One never knows.
Oh, that sounds great. Thanks for that, Mark.
No, it's your SpongeBob SquarePants. Get it?
Yes. I got it.
How you doing tonight?
Oh, doing good. Got my ice cream, got my feet up. I am ready to talk SpongeBob.
So, before we get into this, I have to know, you being 7 years my junior, were you a fan of the cartoon? Did you watch the series when it was contemporary?
I did when it first came out. I actually enjoy the first 3 or 4 seasons of SpongeBob. Sadly, I am part of the crowd that some people call the elitist group of SpongeBob fans, because frankly, I think after they did the first SpongeBob movie, the entirely animated one, like 2D animated one, then the show really started to go downhill. And we do see some examples of that in the film tonight, of where some of their weaknesses lay. But the first 3 seasons, I think, are hilarious and have some really good jokes, some really interesting characters, some really fun animation. I have been a lifelong fan of Steven Hillenburg. May he rest in peace. We tragically lost him to ALS not too long ago, and this movie is dedicated to his memory. I watched his work when he worked on earlier cartoons like Rocko's Modern Life. I've always been a fan of his style and his humor, and it was just really cool getting to see someone that I had grown up watching his contributions to some of my favorite Nickelodeon shows actually get a show of his own. It was really cool.
So I had to have been in college when SpongeBob first came around. And I was aware of it because my friend had a kid between high school and college. And she was super young at the time when we had lost touch with each other, and then we kind of got back together again. And he was like, "Hey, I have a daughter." I'm like, "Fantastic." So I come over to his house one day, and he's got SpongeBob on for her. And he's like, "You gotta take a few minutes and watch this show. It's I know it's a kid's show, but it's really funny." And this happened to be the one where Sandy starts singing "I Want to Go Home," and they started showing all of these like live action still pictures as she's singing. And I'm laughing hysterically at this, and I'm like, "Is the show always this random?" And he was like, "Yeah, that's kind of the point of the show. Like, it's a kid's show, but it has that level of adult humor that is super random and left field." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And over the years, having kids of my own, I've watched hither and thither a SpongeBob thing there, here and there, but I can't say I've watched a lot of the episodes. I will say what I did see would on occasion crack me up. not quite as irreverent, I think, as the Animaniacs that we've talked about in the past, but still, I mean, I think SpongeBob gets a bad rap also. I think people kind of point to SpongeBob and be like, this is stupid even for kids. But I'll tell you, you can't argue with his popularity. Kids love him, and so something must be working here.
I could definitely see that. I could be wrong, but I think that there was also an uptick in interest in marine biology thanks to this show.
Nice. So, SpongeBob was originally set to be released in theaters. It was released in Canada August 14th, 2020, and then because of the COVID pandemic, it got pulled from theaters, and then with the push to get people to sign up for Paramount Plus, they decided to make it debut exclusive there, but also available for PVOD. So that's how we watched it. We are now proud members of the Paramount Plus family. That's how we watched it. I'm guessing you did PVOD, correct?
Correct. Amazon.
Yeah. It was also made internationally. It was also made available internationally through Netflix. So I think the people around the world got to watch it that way. And the story goes like this. In Bikini Bottom, Plankton works on a new plan to steal Krabby Patty formula when Karen argues that SpongeBob is actually responsible for all of his previous failures and not Mr. Krabs. And wasn't this the plot line to one of the Pinky and the Brain cartoons?
More or less, yeah. It's one where Brain thinks Pinky is the problem and the downfall, so he makes him intelligent. But then Pinky finds out that the algorithm he used to figure this out was wrong, and it's actually Brain's fault.
Right. So, that same night, Plankton sneaks into the Krusty Krab and scans a Krabby Patty to print the formula, but SpongeBob inadvertently causes Plankton to fall into a deep fryer and lose the formula while the latter searching for his keys. This leads to Plankton to understand that Karen was right in her suspicions. Meanwhile, in Atlantic City, which is literally like, the lost kingdom of Atlantis, that looks like, a Atlantic City casino, selfish ruler King Poseidon has just used up all the slime from his latest sea snail, which is necessary to keep him rejuvenated. Sea snails are almost extinct. Poseidon decrees the obtaining of a new snail. Plankton finds out about this and kidnaps SpongeBob's pet snail, Gary, so that SpongeBob will go find him and thus not interfere with his plans. The next morning, SpongeBob learns from Patrick that Gary was taken to Atlantic City. However, Plankton offers Otto, a robot built by Sandy, to take him to the city and never return.
Voiced by Aquafina.
Yes.
Yeah.
Again, another good voice work from her.
Yeah, no, it was just like, she goes from a talking dragon to a robot with a gambling problem. Good to know.
Yeah, I have to say, we sang her praises on the Raya review. I can't say enough good things about Aquafina. At least when she's doing drama and voice work, she works out really well. Without SpongeBob's cooking Krabby Patties, the Krusty Krabs and rage customers trash the restaurant, despite Mr. Krabs and Squidward's efforts to stop them. Otto drives SpongeBob and Patrick to an old western town where they meet a tumbleweed spirit named Sage, played by Keanu Reeves, in quite possibly the best role he's ever had.
I made a sage, and I am a sage, and my name is Sage. So it works out. Yeah, I have a feeling this is just one of those roles where they said, Keanu, we'll pay you to do this. He's like, are you kidding me? I want to do this for free.
Yeah, it's funny. I debated whether or not we were even going to review this, and I'm like, no, I have to talk about Keanu Reeves in this movie. He's hilarious. He's probably the best part about it.
Absolutely. I just love it. I was like, wait, I haven't told you what your quest is. Calm down, Sage. Calm down.
So good. Sage reveals they're in a dream and must overcome a special mission to continue their search. He gives them a challenge coin that will embrave them into a tavern haunted by ghost zombie pirates, like you do. Following a small musical number with Snoop Dogg, because Snoop Dogg's in everything.
I'm convinced this whole sequence was going to be like a special episode of SpongeBob that was going to air for an anniversary or something, and it got shelved, and somebody just said, we have to shove this in for the hell of it. Because it has nothing to do with this movie whatsoever. But at the same time, it's Snoop Dogg, Keanu Reeves, and Danny Trejo. And Lord knows we all need more Keanu Reeves and Danny Trejo in our lives.
SpongeBob and Patrick discover the pirates' souls are trapped by an evil spirit known as El Diablo, and their mission is to free them. El Diablo traps the duo in his office, but they accidentally disintegrate him with sunlight, like you do, but in covering some window curtains. The pirates' souls are freed, and SpongeBob and Patrick continue on their travel until Otto wakes them up, thus revealing that everything was a dream. Or was it?
Yeah, that was kind of a weird thing, because, it was clearly a dream. They had to say it was a dream because they were in the live-action world breathing air, and we've established that they can't do that. They're sea creatures.
Right.
So, but we have to have them have the challenge coin, and Sage has to make a return. So, again, this is just a very, very bizarre side quest that, again, really does not factor into the plot whatsoever.
I'm going to come back to this, but I really do feel like they had what they thought was a fun idea for a full feature-length SpongeBob movie, and about halfway through writing it, they ran out of crap, and then at that point, they were like, well, we got to fill 90 minutes of this, so start adding shit, which brings me to my next thing. Now accompanied by Sage, SpongeBob discovers that Poseidon is using Gary's slime to stay young, and as soon as it runs out, he will have him enslaved with the rest of his previous dried snails.
For the record, do you know that snail massage is actually a thing? Snail facials. It's a real thing.
I did not know, but that's interesting.
Yep, there are some spas that you go and pay a couple $100, and they will let snails crawl all over your face, and it's supposed to have rejuvenating factors.
Gross. Arriving at Atlantic City, Sage warns the pair not to be distracted by the city's attractions, which they ignore, that's in the trailer. After a fun-filled night, SpongeBob and Patrick discover that they have lost the challenge coin, because of course they have, that allowed them to be brave, but they still reach into Poseidon's palace. When they try to take Gary back home to Bikini Bottom, both are arrested and imprisoned. Back in Bikini Bottom, Plankton arrives with the Krusty Krab, and a depressed Mr. Krabs just gives him the formula, because nothing is the same without SpongeBob. However, seeing Mr. Krabs so upset makes Plankton feel incredibly guilty about what he has done. Upon finding out that SpongeBob and Patrick will be executed in a luxury show in Poseidon's palace, Mr. Krabs, Squidward, Sandy, and a redeemed Plankton decide to go find and save him.
I'm going to just say this. I did not get the redemption thing from Plankton. I got it more of him just like, wait, what's the point of winning if I don't get to gloat and you don't get to cry over my winning? It's like, this is the absolute most worthless way to win, and I don't like it.
That was all I got from that.
Yeah, it's like, I don't think he feels guilty. I think he's just like, screw it, I'll steal the formula another time when it actually matters.
Right. It's like, if this isn't competitive, all right, everybody mark the center square on the bingo card. There's a part in The Wire where... There's a part of The Wire where Omar is walking down the street, and after years and years of having to deal with him robbing them, the drug dealers just start throwing drugs out the window. Nobody even wants... Like, that's not... I think he had... This was it. He was in his pajamas, and he went to go buy, and they had run out of Honey Nut Cheerios. And so he, in his pajamas, leaves his crack house that he's living in and goes to go to the corner store to buy some Cheerios. And as he's walking, everyone's whistling and yelling, "Omar coming!" And they start throwing drugs out the window because they don't want to be shot by him. And he's like, "That's not even why I'm here." And so he walks back into his house, and he's with his boyfriend, and the boyfriend's like, and he throws the drugs on the table, and he's all disgusted. And the boyfriend goes, "Did they run out of Cheerios?" And he's like, "I don't even want this." And that's what leads him to decide that he's going to hit the biggest score of his life. There are no more challenges left for him in the street. He has become too infamous. And so, too, is where Plankton has arrived. The very same place as Omar.
Yeah, it's like there's no point in winning if Mr. Krabs doesn't care.
Right. There is no challenge here, and thus, what is the point?
Well, which, of course, actually is sort of hilarious, because the point has always been he wants the formula for the Krabby Patty. The point has always been he figures that if he can get the formula and replicate it and start selling Krabby Patties at his restaurant, then he'll actually be able to have a successful business.
Right.
But I like the idea that this has progressed over all of these years of him doing this. It's like he has completely forgotten, oh yeah, I have a restaurant. Oh yeah, I need customers.
Right. In prison, Sage reveals to SpongeBob and Patrick that the challenge coin never had any powers, and that the bravery came from themselves, like you do in a children's film. Lone Star, the ring was Bupkis. That's a line from Spaceballs. But it's the same point. You had the Schwartz within you all along, SpongeBob. When SpongeBob is about to be executed because Patrick had made a deal with Poseidon's Chancellor to save himself, Mr. Krabs, Squidward, Plankton, and Sandy burst into the show to testify in favor of SpongeBob. And this is about where the movie loses me, because I really was like tolerant of the high level of stupidity in this film. It was a children's film. I was putting up with it. I was actually mildly entertained. Here's where it loses me. Along with Patrick, each recounts an experience they had in their childhood with SpongeBob when they were at summer camp. In the wiki, that sentence is linked to Camp Corral, which made its debut on Paramount Plus when Paramount Plus started.
Okay, first of all, it's Camp Coral.
What? Yeah, Camp Coral.
Yeah, secondly, yeah, this has actually been the biggest complaint from fans and just critics in general. Majority of this movie is actually pretty funny. And even if you're not a huge fan of SpongeBob, there's going to be a few moments you would probably snicker at. Again, I'm convinced it's the live action sequence. But they made no secret that they're launching a new show on Paramount Plus and Nickelodeon called Camp Coral that shows the SpongeBob characters as children in a summer camp. And frankly, I am beyond pissed because the sequences that we see have all of the characters have little kid voices. And it's kind of cute. But when you view this on Amazon, I don't know if you got to see this on Paramount Plus or not, but on Amazon, after it, you get a sneak peek at a mini episode of Camp Coral. And it's the same voice actors. Some of them are just like trying to pitch it up a little higher. And it kills me. I'm like, you actually had what it's like. At first I thought, oh, that's going to be stupid. But then when I saw the sequences with the kid characters and the younger voice, I'm like, okay, this could have some redeeming factors. But then now it's like, no, it's the exact same cast doing the same thing. They just switched the locations, essentially. I don't know. The laziness is just starting to shine through those curtains, if you will.
Yeah, when the movie turned from moderately funny kids film, irreverent kids film, into a marketing advertisement for Camp Coral, that's when I was like, yeah, I'm done. And not too long after that, so were my kids. This scene is fucking interminable, by the way. This goes on and on and on and on, and like for a 90-minute movie that spent this much time on that one sequence, I was like, yeah, they ran the fuck out of ideas. And just as an aside, I put Camp Coral on for Jonas because he's a fan of the show, and I'm like, hey, you might like this. He was actually excited about the show, and I told him about it. He got maybe an episode or two into it, and he was like, yeah, this sucks. I'm turning it off. Like, I'm already bored. Okay.
Yeah, I don't even get why they suddenly decided to go with the insanely cheap-looking CGI. This film is done entirely CGI, but it has almost a stop-motion feel to it, and I really liked it. They paid a lot of attention to the textures and the movement. I thought this was a very good-looking film. I like it when a film tries something new with the CGI. They don't just try to make it look like every other movie that's come out. Yeah. Kind of like what we saw with the Peanuts movie. It was like they really managed to, find a balance of CGI but still look like the comic strip. Same thing with this movie. But then when you watch Camp Coral, it's like it looks like every other plastic CG abomination that has come out in the last 10 years.
As well as how important SpongeBob is to all of them, which earns the audience's gratitude. Afterwards, the group perform a musical number to distract Poseidon and take Gary away. Poseidon realizes the distraction and orders his guards to capture the group. SpongeBob and his friends manage to sneak around the palace to the exit, but are once again cornered when Otto leaves them behind. Poseidon confronts them, but gleefully orders charges dropped for amusing him. However, he also does it on the condition that SpongeBob give Gary to him and never come back for him. Remembering Sage's words, SpongeBob gains courage and refuses, arguing that his friends went out of their way to help him in their rescue, even when Poseidon threatened to kill them all. However, when Poseidon finds out that he has no friends and reveals he needs the slime for his appearance, SpongeBob offers to be his friend and tells him that beauty is on the inside, like you do, and that he doesn't need to hide it. This caused... in a scene straight out of I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker, he just... He just strips away all the things that are keeping him looking nice and tight and wonderful, and of course he's a complete schlub. He moves all of his arrangements to return to his true appearance. Everyone accepts him for who he is, and Poseidon allows SpongeBob to take Gary home. Otto drives the group back home, while Poseidon releases all of his enslaved snails to accompany them, and Bikini Bottom ends up becoming a sea snail refuge. All right. I don't have a tremendous amount to say here, and we kind of covered a lot of it just as we went through the plot synopsis. The stuff with... The setup is fine. The stuff with Keanu Reeves is really funny. He gives the best performance in this entire thing. He is hysterical. And when he was on screen, I was really enjoying the movie. The live action dance sequence with Snoop Dogg and Danny Trejo was also really, really funny, if not a little bit out there. SpongeBob is what he is, so when him and Patrick are yelling good morning at one another with Squidward in the middle, there's a lot of that kind of thing in this movie, and you either like it because you like that kind of humor and you like the SpongeBob character, or this entire affair is a waste of your time. At about, like I said, about the halfway point, when we get to Act 3, and they start in with, as I said before, they start in with the Camp Coral stuff, and then they do the song and the dance, and this goes on and on and on and on. The movie falls completely apart for me, and I'm realizing just how, like, for something that was supposed to be a major motion picture feature in theaters, I don't feel like, outside of the voice talents, they put a tremendous amount of effort into this. It definitely feels like kids like SpongeBob. Keep it to 90 minutes. It'll do fine in theaters because parents are going to want to bring their kids to the SpongeBob movie, and who cares if it sucks? Like this, we talked about Raya earlier in the week, and at least with Raya, I may not have liked some of the choices that they made, but care was put into that movie. I don't feel like care was put into this at all. What did you think?
Like I said before, the Camp Coral plugs really are annoying. Not to mention they really don't make a lot of sense because if you've been a fan of the show for a while, you know that they have established when and where majority of the characters met. I mean, hell, the pilot episode of SpongeBob has him meeting Sandy the squirrel for the first time, and now we're retconning it that they knew each other when they were little.
Can I bring something up? Because it made me think about Muppet Babies. Now, Muppet Babies, correct me if I'm wrong, starts off as a segment that's done in the Great Muppet Caper that's all in Miss Piggy's imagination. She says, what if we had met, instead of whatever version, the Muppets coming together is also very complicated and done differently depending on which movie you're watching. But it's established, at least in the Muppets Take Manhattan.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. It's like, you're close. You had the wrong movie. But yeah.
No, I meant the Muppets Take Manhattan. Where, they had come together to do this show, and then they break apart for the reasons in the movie. There's a part where Kermit and Miss Piggy are sort of reflecting, and Miss Piggy says, what if instead of how we all met, what if we had met as babies? And then she goes into this imaginative. She goes into her imagination, and that's where you get the Mama Dada Boop Boop Chihuahua. And it was such a popular bit from the movie that everyone loved it. It spawned an entire cartoon and its own like little mini empire of its own, featuring the Muppet Babies. That's fine.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I could be wrong, but I think you're right that the Muppet Babies was the start of the babyfication. I don't know if there's an actual word for it, but I call the babyfication of take a character and then you just suddenly decide to have it when they're younger.
Right.
We had this with Yo Yogi and Tom and Jerry kids, and oh my god, more than I care to count.
Right, but I feel like it started with Muppet Babies. But again, I'm okay with a parallel universe of Muppet Babies. That's not canon for, and like I said, when you start getting into canon for Muppets, you've probably lost the point and the plot. It doesn't matter. The Muppets don't stay within their own continuity, so who cares? But here,
and it's also one of the few times that they made something like that, and then it was suddenly they saw how popular it was, and they said we should cash in on this. Right. I think nowadays, if Muppets Take Manhattan had come out nowadays, that the first 10 episodes of Muppet Babies had already been, animated, voiced, and freaking sent through test audiences and everything because they were counting on that scene to
Oh,
launch
absolutely. There would have been a link embedded within the movie for you to go to the the Disney Plus show Muppet Babies. It would have been ridiculous. And that's the point of why I brought that up, because that's the kind of cynicism that is in this movie. The whole Camp Coral sequence. You made a point of, well, in continuity they'd already met, so the Camp Coral stuff makes zero sense, and it goes to the, well, they seem to be doing this because babies are fun. Look at Baby Yoda, baby this, baby that. People like babies and dogs. That's it. That's all anyone likes in this world: babies and dogs. And so let's do baby SpongeBob, and it'll be a hit. And it's like, when that's your level of cynicism, you'll never find a better capitalist than me, but even that grosses me out.
But again, they're not babies. It's the same voice actors. At least with Muppet Babies and the other shows that we've mentioned, they got different voice actors, so they sounded younger.
Mm-hmm.
Watching the mini episode that comes on the Amazon download, the only person I noticed who was really doing an active job trying to alter his voice is the guy who voices Patrick.
Mm-hmm.
I could tell
Bill
that he
Fagerbach?
was. Yes, thank you. I knew the name, but I realized I was blanking on how to pronounce his last name, and I've already massacred enough pronunciations in the last 2 shows. But yeah, you can tell he's trying. And I love it. SpongeBob has always had some incredible voice actors. Tom Kenny, Clancy Brown, Roger Bumpus. These are all seasoned professionals. They all do an amazing job with the characters. But it's like, but they're still just doing the same voices they have. It's like, why wouldn't you tell them to either pitch it up a little bit or get new actors? I hate to say it, but I think the show would have been a little bit more tolerable if they had stuck with the kid voice cast that we had heard in the movie. At least there would have been like a little more element of cuteness added to it. And by getting that, we get more of an innocence with the characters, and it's a bit more likable. Again, by having the characters do the exact same voices and the exact same thing, you have essentially you're not getting a babyfication. You're getting whatever the equivalent is of Josie and the Pussycats in outer space.
I read that, as a matter of fact.
I still remember the first time I saw that on Cartoon Network, and I was like, this actually happened?
You're referring to the show. There was a comic that was written called Josie and the Pussycats in Outer Space, which it's like Josie and the Pussycats meets aliens. It's actually pretty amusing. I read that on Comixology, as a matter of fact. Okay,
well now I have a book I need to purchase.
What else did you we talked a little bit about the plankton thing. It's not, none of this is well written, but that was particularly underwritten. But at least we agreed that we saw where they were going with it, but it was like, it's just underdeveloped, they're just like, and so he decided that after all these decades of wanting to be successful, he suddenly doesn't because there's no challenge in it. Okay. I mean, it's one of those where, as Sean said once, he's like, just because you're doing a kid's movie, it doesn't have to be stupid. And apparently everyone working on this movie disagreed. It does, in fact, have to be stupid, and it's perfectly okay.
Like I said, there are some good moments. There are some really funny bits. Aquafina as the robot got a laugh out of me. I just constantly say, "You're fired." That was funny. Bits with King Poseidon made me laugh. Again, we've talked ad nauseum about the live-action season, how hilarious that was. I mean, I'm sorry, I died laughing that Danny Trejo was dissolving behind SpongeBob and Patrick while they're talking about curtains. It's like, once the curtain rod goes, you might as well just go ahead and get new curtains. I'm sorry, that bit was legit hilarious.
Yeah, no, like I said, I think the first half of it, one, I had a high level of patience, and two, I was open to the stupid humor. It's that second half of the movie where it all goes downhill for me, and it just, like, by the time it was over, you'd lost the 7-year-old, the parents were on their phones, and my daughter had said, "I have brain damage, I'm going to bed."
Fair enough. Yeah, now, like I said, there are some good moments in this, and again, I will give full props to the animation team, because this is you don't think the animation in a SpongeBob movie is going to be that stellar, but this was a very cool design, and
Okay.
I like it. If you're a fan of SpongeBob, you're going to like this. If you're not a huge fan, there's going to be a couple of moments that you laugh at, but you're probably going to walk away going, whatever. Nothing in this movie, I think, is horrible. There's no parts of it that make me want to blow my brains out. Yeah, there are a couple of boring parts, and I'll go ahead and agree with your daughter there about the whole losing brain cells thing. But, comparing this to, I'm sorry, I can't really rank on this because we just got done talking about Tom and Jerry, which really was an abomination.
See, I think of the 3 animated movies we've done in quick succession, Tom and Jerry, Raya, and this one. I actually think this one was the worst, by far.
I still say Tom and Jerry was the worst. This one comes in second, but let's face it, there was no chance in hell either of these were going to be better than Raya, but that's neither here nor there.
Okay, one last thing I wanted to bring up was the soundtrack to this. Both the soundtrack with the music, with Weezer and Snoop and everything, is available on AmazonMusic.com, as well as the motion picture score. There's a great song on here by Weezer that I was just talking about. It's Always Sunny in Bikini Bottom. That is, especially if you're a Weezer fan like I am, that is fantastic. My wife actually pointed this out, like, holy crap, there's a song by the Flaming Lips on here. Yeah, it's Snail, I'm a Veil.
They got freaking Kenny G on here. There's a bit where Squidward wants to go watch a musician called Kelpie G. It's obviously Kenny G.
Right.
And I thought that was just a nice parody. But then when you actually see the soundtrack, you go, holy shit, they actually did get Kenny G in to perform.
Yeah, they did. This is a bizarre soundtrack. So we have Taney and G Balvin, Swa Lee, Tyga and Little Mosey, Trevor Daniel, Becky G and Titan Taney, Weezer, Snoop Dogg and Monsta X, Kenny G because Brick. The Sponge on the Run cast doing Secret to the Formula, the Flaming Lips, and once again another version of Agua by Taney and G Balvin. So this is a lot of fun. If you want to check it out, you should sign up for a free month of Amazon Music on us. That's getamazonmusic.com/W2M network. Getamazonmusic.com/W2M network. Get your free 30 days. You can check out both the motion picture soundtrack and the motion picture soundtrack score, or any one of the other soundtracks we've talked about on here, and really any of the albums that we've reviewed on the Metal Hammer of Doom, or whatever your heart's content. There are limitless possibilities of music you can check out on AmazonMusic.com. All right, so with that said, let's go ahead and let's do the news. How about that?
Sounds good.
And now, I'm up at News Flash.
All right, we're jumping into this ridiculous story. It's all about Pepe Le Pew. And we have 2 articles here from Deadline, both within a day of each other. And we're going to cover this thing from head to toe, from right to left, from butt to stuff, so that you get all the information here. And I like to do our news segment to where you get all facets of a story, not just someone's, crazy, far, whatever opinion on the matter, devoid of the context in which the story was written, because boy is there a lot of that on Twitter. With that said, New York Times columnist raises a stink about Looney Tunes' Pepe Le Pew. This comes March 6th of this past year. Pepe Le Pew, the cartoon French skunk, whose amorous attentions have chased generations of females, has been targeted by the New York Times. Print media is dying, people. And yet, they waste precious ink on going after Pepe Le Pew. Columnist Charles M. Blow claims in a tweet written today, as this article was being written, that Looney Tunes character added to rape culture, quote unquote. Pepe Le Pew added to rape culture. Quote, right-wing blogs are mad because I said Pepe Le Pew added to rape culture. Let's see. 1. He grabs, kisses a girl stranger repeatedly without consent and against her will. 2. She struggles mightily to get away from him, but he won't release her. 3. He locks a door to prevent her from escaping. It's true, unquote. It's true, Penelope Pussycat was often in Pepe's clutches. Yeah, okay. So that tweet was done on 9 a.m. on March 6th from Charles M. Blow's Twitter account. Looney Tunes had previously stopped featuring rifles in its updated portrayals of Elmer Fudd, which we talked about actually when we reviewed the Looney Tunes show on HBO Max. Blow previously took on Dr. Seuss in an op-ed titled 6 Seuss Books Bore a Bias, which we also talked about on the show. He argued that early exposure to negative imagery shapes perceptions. Negative imagery as a child shapes perceptions. That's the argument he's making. He mentioned Speedy Gonzales, the Mexican mouse cartoon, as one such negative. Naturally, as there are in this sort of thing, there were mixed feelings online about Blow's take, but he is not alone in his perception. 100 years ago, Dave Chappelle made the same stupid joke, calling Pepe Le Pew, saying, "Ha, that's funny when you're a kid, and then you suddenly realize he's a rapist." Someone clapped back on this. Jack Posobiec. If the New York Times says Pepe Le Pew adds to rape culture, what will they say about Coming to America sequel where the entire plot is based on Leslie Jones's character date-raping Prince Akeem? And this only gets worse. So, let's stop there. Let's keep this parsed. So, before the next thing happens, there was already, Twitter argument and online, quote-unquote, discourse about Pepe Le Pew adding to rape culture. So let me go to you, Alexis. You're on a bunch of animation boards, not getting into the Space Jam stuff. We're not there yet. It hadn't happened yet, technically. So just the pointing of Charles M. Blow to Pepe Le Pew as, ha, rape culture. What did you see and what did you think?
Well, the first thing I saw was that the wonderful administrator of the Cartoon Research Board that I frequent has apparently been driven into insanity and now has to screen all the posts because he has officially banged his head against the wall one too many times with how many times somebody has posted the article, Pepe Le Pew cut out of Space Jam.
Okay.
Jerry, I love you, man. You rock. I feel for you. It has gotten out of hand with how many people, unfortunately, have gone into the clickbaitness of this discussion, especially with the whole Space Jam 2 thing. Hang on,
if we're going to keep bringing it up, let me talk about that 1 second, and then we'll just have a general discussion about the whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so separately from Charles M. Blow pointing and saying, hey, negative stereotypes seen as a child are bad, here are my examples, Pepe Le Pew and Speedy Gonzales, in addition to Dr. Seuss books. Okay, that's one thing that happened. Separately from that, and an entire year or so earlier, but it came about again because of the Pepe Le Pew thing that Charles M. Blow was referencing, another article was written by Deadline saying Pepe Le Pew won't be appearing in the Warner Brothers Space Jam sequel. And again, I'm going to read it, but I want to be clear about this. One had nothing to do with the other. It wasn't Charles M. Blow said Pepe Le Pew bad, and Warner Brothers went, you're right, and yanked him from the movie. This was independent of that and done a year or two ago because of a change in directors. Here's the story. He first starred in the Warner Brothers film Space Jam movie back in 1996. However, Pepe Le Pew will not be showing up at all in the upcoming theatrical sequel Space Jam: A New Legacy on July 16th. With the Looney Tunes French skunk besieged by controversy in the wake of New York Times columnist Charles M. Blow slamming the cartoon character added to rape culture, Deadline has learned that a hybrid live-action animation scene between Jane the Virgin actress Grisanto and Pepe Le Pew, shot back in June 2019 for Space Jam 2, was left on the cutting room floor. The Pepe Le Pew character will likely be a thing of the past across all media. Warner Brothers also has no current TV series featuring the skunk, and there are no plans to have him appear on Looney Tunes, Bugs Bunny Builders, Tiny Toons Looniversary, or future projects, sources confirmed to Deadline. The live-action Space Jam 2 scene was filmed by the PIC's first director, Terrence Nance. As Deadline reported in July of 2019, Nance left the production with Malcolm D. Lee taking over. Under the direction of Lee, Pepe Le Pew was eliminated from the sequel a while ago and never animated for the live-action footage which was shot. According to sources who saw a rough cut 3 months ago, they didn't see any kind of cameo by the skunk. I understand that Pepe's firing from Space Jam: A New Legacy has nothing to do with the recent remarks made by New York Times' Below. But wait until you hear about the scene with Pepe, which was cut. Oh, this is fantastic. Pepe was set to appear in a black and white Casablanca-like Rick's Cafe sequence. Pepe, playing bartender, starts hitting on a woman at a bar played by Santo. He begins kissing her arm, which she pulls back, then slamming Pepe into the chair next to her. She then pours her drink on Pepe and slaps him hard, sending him spinning in a stool, which is then stopped by LeBron James's hand. James and Bugs Bunny are looking for Lola, the pile of laundry with jet eyes referenced in an earlier Damn You Hollywood, and Pepe knows her whereabouts. Pepe then tells the guys that Penelope Cat has filed a restraining order against him. James makes a remark in the script that Pepe can't grab other tunes without their consent. Ha! Upon learning that her scene with Pepe was cut, Santo was pissed, according to her spokesperson. The actress-singer has been a victim of sexual harassment and has spoken out against it, even recording a debut single back in February 2018 with multi-Grammy winner producer Umberto Gattaca to empower women to stand up to sexual predators and sexual harassment. Santo even has a nonprofit, Glam with Grease, which aims to empower victims of domestic violence to change their lives for the better. Santo took joy, ladies and gentlemen, in shooting the Space Jam sequel with Pepe because the skunk finally gets his comeuppance. A spokesperson for Santo tells Deadline today, March 7th, this was such a big deal for Grease to be in this movie. Even though Pepe is a cartoon character, if anyone was going to slap a sexual harasser like him, Grease wished it would be her. Now the scene is cut, and she doesn't have that power to influence the world through younger generations who will be watching Space Jam 2 to let younger girls and younger boys know that Pepe's behavior is unacceptable. Warner Brothers has encountered problems like this in recent years over Looney Tunes' politically incorrect characters. Last June, the old Looney Tunes streaming on HBO Max banned Elmer Fudd from using a gun, which we talked about, etc., etc. All right, have at it.
Okay, we did talk a while ago about when we did both seasons of the new Looney Tunes shorts on HBO Max, and we discussed how it was painfully obvious that we were not going to see Pepe Le Pew or Speedy Gonzales, for that matter, show up because we knew that their gimmicks were not going to work in today's, culture. I mean, I believe the sub-caption under the first Looney Tunes review we did was a discussion of rapist skunks and Mexican and racist mice.
Yeah, it sounds like something I would write.
Yeah, no, we knew this was going to be part of the. And for the record, I want to know that when we discussed the Dr. Seuss thing, I actually said to you, if they start pointing fingers at Looney Tunes and saying how that's not politically correct, I'm going to lose my head. So I called this.
Yep, yeah, you did.
Look, Pepe Le Pew, is one of my. I keep saying there is one of my favorites, but they're all my favorites. I am a Looney Tunes fanatic through and through, and I always have been. I have the Pepe Le Pew Spotlight collection on DVD. I don't care how much those idiots are selling it for on eBay. I'm not selling mine.
Can I ask you a direct question? Two direct questions. The
Yes.
the accusation that Pepe Le Pew edged to rape culture. That basically, boy sees Pepe Le Pew cartoon, thinks that that's appropriate behavior, will grow up to molest women.
I think if somebody is able to be influenced by Pepe Le Pew and they think that that's appropriate culture, has a lot more problems for them than the future being accused of rape.
Yeah, that's, first of all, and I think I've brought this up before, but I think there have been a zillion and one studies, because this happens a lot. People are, the hashtag that's popular right now is cancel culture. And I don't even want to get into the liberals sort of pointing back at the conservatives, like, what? It's only unfair when you do it. It's only okay when you do it, but when it gets done back to you, suddenly it's a problem. Whatever. It's been going all the way back to the 80s, with the Satanic Panic and all of that. There have been accusations that heavy metal, gangster rap, violent video games, horror movies, you name it, if exposed to these things in the absence of any kind of parental supervision, will have a negative impact on the person's behavior, and they will grow up to have behavioral and societal problems. Notice I said in the absence of parental supervision. Okay? Almost every study, and if people want to find evidence to the contrary and send it to @MarkRadulich on Twitter, that's fine with me. But my understanding of this subject has been every study has proven that given a sound environment in which to grow up and in which everything else is taken into account, the exposure to violence essentially doesn't really have an effect on the child. Go ahead.
I always felt like they were missing the whole point of Pepe's character. Pepe was based off of Charles Boyer, and there was this, archetype of the leading man in the films where he would be suave and sophisticated, and he would look at a woman, he would just say the right thing, and she would be pudding in his hands, or whatever you want to say. Mm-hmm. Just the whole, I'm melting in your arms kind of a thing. And the joke is that Pepe is modeled after that same character. He is saying the same kind of things that Boyer would have said. He just doesn't realize he's a skunk and he smells.
Right, and that's an important point to this, is that I think Charles M. Blow, in an attempt to, ignore decades of studies to the contrary, is looking at the interactions between Pepe and Penelope and going, she doesn't want him, Pepe, because she just doesn't. And the gag has always been, she'd have been fine with him and his amorous behavior had it not been for the fact that he stinks because he's a skunk.
If you actually look at a good chunk of Pepe Le Pew-based merchandise, it shows the two romantically together. I have a picture frame that has Andre and me in it, with those two forming a heart. I have a music box that my aunt gave me as a wedding gift, with Pepe holding Penelope, and she's got the little hearts in her eyes. It's actually one of my favorite things. It's so freaking cute. And I sent you a link to a teapot I want to buy from my collection, and it has the two of them on there, and they're all cute together. They've always, it's like, yeah, that was a joke, but in modern merchandising, they always portray Pepe and Penelope as the adorable couple. They love each other. In fact, one of my favorite Pepe Le Pew cartoons, I believe it's called Really Scent, Penelope is not a black cat who has had a white stripe painted down her back. She was born with the white stripe, and she's upset because she can't get a boyfriend because all the male cats think she's a skunk. She comes across Pepe, and she runs into his arms, and she's like, yes, I love this guy. He loves me. But then she realizes he stinks. And there's a part where she holds her breath to be with him. And he's talking about taking her to Paris and how they'll have a wonderful life together. And frankly, even I'm like, oh, wow, that actually sounds awesome. But he starts pretty blue in the face, and there's a narrator over the whole thing, and the narrator goes, you're not going to let a little thing like breathing stand between you and happiness. And the episode ends, her name isn't Penelope in this, it's Fabret, I think. Mm-hmm. Pepe realizes that he stinks, and he says that he's going to go out of his way to make things better for her. He locks himself in a deodorizing factory. But Fabret comes to the same conclusion and locks herself in a Lemberger factory. So they come out, and they hug each other and everything, and of course now Pepe realizes she stinks, and he runs for it, and she gives chase.
There are a bunch of, again, the implication of he's always trying to molest this poor cat. There have been a bunch of Pepe Le Pew, Penelope cat cartoons where the tables turn on him. It's she gets paint knocked on her and she stinks, and then she runs after him because he's now freaking out. I think there were even ones where. I can't remember why she suddenly changed her mind about him, but she does, and he's like, you know what, now that you're into me, I'm not so much into you anymore, and he makes a run for it.
Yeah, guess what, ladies? The whole playing hard to get thing actually works, and sometimes it works to a disadvantage. I mean, hell, the pilot episode The first appearance of Pepe Le Pew, directed by Charles M. Jones, called Adorable Kitty, is a male cat who paints himself to look like a skunk to get even with his aggressors. Pepe thinks it's a female skunk and pursues him. And in the end, he's got the cat where he wants him, and there's a tap on his shoulder, and he looks. Pepe is married with 2 kids, and he's not French because he suddenly has to drop the accent. And he's like, just helping the lady out, honey. I swear to God, And of course, he gets the crap beat out of him by his very pissed off wife.
So let's move the conversation forward here. I really wanted to know what was the consensus opinion on these animation boards. Did just regarding the accusation of Pepe Le Pew being a contributor to rape culture? Like, did people weigh in on that, or was it just solely on the cut from Space Jam 2 thing?
Oh, they weighed on it. They weighed on it so much. Again, this was the topic that made the Ant-Man say, screw it, I can't trust you people anymore.
Was there anybody that was like, yeah, I agree with Charles M. Blow, or was it literally an entire group community of fuck that guy?
It was actually, I'd say, about 70-30. 70% saying this is bullshit, 30% saying, you know what, maybe they got a point. The biggest problem, like I mentioned, came from the clickbait articles that talked about Pepe being canceled and cut out of Space Jam. It doesn't help that a lot of those used pictures of Pepe's appearance from the first Space Jam movie, and because we are a society of morons who doesn't know how to actually read the article connected to the link, there was a giant rumor going around that all copies of Space Jam, the first one, were going to have Pepe edited out.
Huh.
Which is bullshit. Especially since I hate to say Pepe's cameo in the first Space Jam movie is actually pretty hilarious.
So what did you think about the idea that once this other director took over, have you actually found the reason why they cut that scene? Like why the new director came in and was like, yeah, let's cut this?
I can't find anything but a lot of speculation from some other filmmakers who assume it was just a pacing thing.
That would be my guess.
Yeah, probably. They said, it's like, we don't have enough time. We need to move the scene along. Maybe there was a better scene that they decided they would fit in better there with another character. Scenes get cut all the time, and it doesn't sound like this was cut for any, oh no, this is a horrible thing. It's like, frankly, actually, the idea of Pepe Le Pew in like a black and white Casablanca setting, I think sounds hilarious.
Yeah, I was giggling as I was reading it, but but you're absolutely right. In the editing process, they will try things. I made this comment online earlier. You try things, and sometimes they work, and sometimes you whiff. That's just the art of filmmaking, the art of really anything. You try a guitar lick, it works, and it ends up becoming awesome. You try something else, the song doesn't work, you end up not using it. That's just the process of art. What was your reaction once you read the article and you knew what the context was and the timeline that they were cutting that scene? How did you react personally?
Besides my whole screaming, I knew it! I called it! Damn it, I'm psychic! I mentioned this before when we talked about Dr. Seuss. I am so sick of the wokeness of our society forgetting to remember that some things were made at a different time period. No, what Pepe Le Pew does nowadays would not be okay. I don't care if you are as suave as Charles Boyer in a film role. I don't care if you're Errol frickin' Flynn. You do not have the right to go up to a woman and hold her and kiss her without her consent. There's my brownie point. But Pepe Le Pew was made in the 40s. It was a different time period. He was modeled after an actor's archetype that we no longer use. The whole Casanova thing really doesn't fly anymore. It is hilarious to me because, again, this is not something you see anymore. Hell, one of my exes and I used to send each other Pepe Le Pew quotes to flirt with each other. My favorite one to this day is still, I tell you what, you'll stop resisting me, and I will stop resisting you. When have you had a better offer than that? Hell, I have a really funny Pepe Le Pew story for you. I think you're going to... And it has nothing to do with the whole rape culture crap. Okay. So, those who are new to the podcast, my husband is an immigrant from Romania. And a couple of times we have gone back there to visit his family. So this one time, we're driving, it's late at night, we're in the car with his uncle, I'm lying down in the back seat, and this smell hits the car, and Andre and I are like, oh my god, what the hell's that smell? Well, I've grown up in the Midwest, so immediately I go, oh geez, someone hit a skunk. You know, if you've grown up in the Midwestern area, you know that smell. You know exactly what I'm talking about. But Andre's uncle says that it's not a skunk, and he says there are no skunks in Romania. Says it's probably just someone's fertilizer. And I go, really? There's no skunks here? So I've got international minutes on my phone. I pull open up, and he goes, well, what do you know? Skunks are only found in North and South America. Interesting. I lie back. I turn off my phone. I lie back down. 5 minutes later, I suddenly shoot up, and I yell, Pepe Le Pew was based on a lie!
Nice. Well done. All right. I think we've covered it. I don't have anything more to say on this. In summation, you said it kind of perfectly before. If you as a child see something on television and it utterly informs your behavior to the detriment of others, the problem isn't what you saw. The problem is you're a messed up human being and there were other stuff going on in your life. This, Charles M. Blow, and his incessant need apparently to condescendingly write tweets out like that. You, sir, this is my only last point on this, and then we'll move on to the critical review. You, sir, have the ability and the luxury. So there's another word I'm looking for here. You write for the New York Times. Privilege is the word I was looking for. You have the privilege of writing for the New York Times, sir. There are important things culturally and in the news that need to be reported on, and that I think you need to use your editorial column space for. Stop wasting fucking time attacking Looney Tunes cartoons and Dr. Seuss. For the love of Christ. That can't be the only thing to talk about now is stupid shit from popular culture that you want to see buried, and burned like a Nazi book burning because you fail to understand, as Robert Winfrey has pointed out numerous times on any number of podcasts, yes, cultural mores change over time. We should not bury and burn these things. We should understand them and know that, yes, they were written in a different time, but that's not a reason. We don't need to do any more of it, but you shouldn't bury it either. I'll give you the last word, and then we can move on.
What terrifies me mostly about what has happened with Pepe is that I'm afraid that this is an escalation of what we've been seeing on Twitter lately is a massive increase in whataboutism. The fact is that we have seen, starting back with, even before the whole Dr. Seuss and Lola Bunny stuff and everything, the fact is that when something gets called out for being insensitive or not woke or whatever, it brings out of the woodwork a lot of people say, well, what about this? This was even worse. And unfortunately, there's going to be a fair amount of idiots who listen to what they say.
Yeah, right after this happened, Miss Piggy got called out.
Yeah, and that was when I sent you a gift that said, shoot me now. We cannot keep just saying, it's like, well, if this is okay, if this is wrong, then this is wrong as well. We can't keep building on top of this, otherwise we're going to completely erase every aspect of our culture. There is always going to be someone who is offended by something. There is nothing in this world that pleases every human being on the planet, okay? There are idiots in this world who don't like chocolate ice cream. That's where it is. We need to just settle in, relax, and stop trying to up who's most pissed off about what.
Yeah, agreed. All right, let's go ahead and do the critical review.
Are you ready?
No! I said, are you ready?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
So this is a weird one where even the critics liked it more than the audience, according to the Rotten Tomatoes scores. It got an aggregate of 69. It's 69%, which is fresh by their measuring stick. Mm-hmm. And the audience score with 250 plus ratings, 56% rotten. That's hilarious.
I don't get humanity.
Yeah, neither do I. All right, so let's see what the critics had to say about this. Joe Negrani, Cultured Vultures. It may not be as refreshing a sequel as these characters deserve, but at least Sponge on the Run lets its Sponge have some fun.
Well, again, somebody's desperate to get on the DVD box.
Chris Samhain of Hub Pages. It's just as funny, ridiculous, and brilliant as you've come to expect from the Bikini Bottom native. The SpongeBob movie, Sponge on the Run, stays true to SpongeBob's roots and feels mostly successful in its three-dimensional format. Really? Because I don't remember the SpongeBob being this cynical cartoon.
It was a little more cynical when it first started. Before they decided that they were just going to torture the hell out of poor Squidward.
Okay.
No, seriously, do yourself a favor, go to YouTube and Google Squidward torture. There are actually countdowns and editorial videos where people talk about all the episodes where apparently the filmmakers couldn't figure out what else to do but make poor Squidward suffer.
Bly Jabiri of New York Magazine /Vulture, top critic, Red Star. Watching one of these movies is like having a vision of Cthulhu. You walk away from the experience a changed person, possibly raving about the apocalypse. Ha, you're so witty.
I think you probably would have gotten that from the Tom and Jerry movie, but to each their own.
Oh, gosh. You are so offended by that movie. Jesus Christ. I'm just picturing you at a bar in your home, like with an entire bottle of your favorite liquor, vodka or whiskey or something, just going, fucking rapping pigeons, shot. Goddamn Warner Brothers, shot. I'll never forgive you for this, shot.
No, I just put on my Tom and Jerry DVDs and said, excuse me, I'm going to enjoy the good shit.
Stephanie Zasharek of Time Magazine, top critic. The movie is an act of loony generosity we shouldn't refuse. This is ludicrous entertainment for frazzled times. Ugh, please stop editorializing in your movie reviews.
Totally. Although technically not 100% wrong. This is a silly movie. It's not to be taken too seriously. Again, like I said, if you're a fan of the show, it's silliness. So if you want just like an hour and a half of silliness, enjoy.
Carla Hay of Culture Mix. The SpongeBob movie, Sponge on the Run, is an exuberant and eye-catching adventure that makes up for some predictable moments with just enough unexpected zaniness to make it worth watching for anyone who appreciates earnestly goofy animation.
Again, not wrong.
Yeah, so far I haven't seen too many of these that are like completely off base.
Yeah, it's like again, I'm picking up a lot of these writers who are desperate to, get seen on the movie poster or the box or something. But for the most part, no, they're not really saying anything, completely out of left field.
Bill Goodikunt of Arizona Republic, top critic. But I will say that SpongeBob is what we need all the time. The more the merrier.
I'm sorry. I'm going to go force you to watch the April Fool's episode where SpongeBob laughs hysterically for at least 30 straight seconds, and I'm going to ask you if you want to put up with that again. Because even in my mother at that point, I remember watching that episode when I was living at home, and my mom just came in, she's like, what the hell?
Nate Adams of The Only Critic. The SpongeBob movie Sponge on the Run creates another memorable undersea adventure where any young tyke who fancies themselves a fan shouldn't be disappointed and parents won't hate themselves for tagging along. No, I can imagine plenty of parents hating this.
I can too, but but I think most parents, if they go in with the right attitude, would probably enjoy. Again, there's a few, you said it's like you're not, even if you weren't a huge SpongeBob fan, there were a couple of scenes that made you laugh.
No, yeah, it wasn't a completely miserable experience. I think, I go back to what I said was the first half of the movie I was enjoying and I actually thought was funny. It's that second half that got me.
Exactly.
I'll do a few more of these and we'll call it a night. Ian Sandwell of Digital Spy. We never thought that SpongeBob SquarePants could be the savior of 2020, but like the character himself, it kind of makes total sense in this year. And that was from November of 2020.
Yeah, I was like, that's a Canadian review, isn't it?
All right, last one. Ann Brody of What She Said. Arrgh. Life's been tough for a few months. Okay, so this is from last August.
I was going to say, this is from what, March of last year?
Life's been tough for a few months, and this wacky, subversive, and ultra-fun cartoon is just what the doctor ordered. Okay.
You know what? I bet this would have been a lot of fun to watch early on into the quarantine. I mean, it's still fun to watch, but I bet, yeah, I can imagine a few months into the quarantine, banging your head against the wall. This would have been a really nice bit of escapism.
So that critical review was brought to you by Grammarly. For you listeners of Damn You Hollywood on the Radulich and Broadcasting Network and the W2M Network, Grammarly is offering a free download of the Grammarly software. Grammarly's AI-powered products help people communicate more effectively. Grammarly helps you write mistake-free on Gmail, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and nearly anywhere else you write on the web. Grammarly corrects hundreds of grammar, punctuation, and spelling mistakes while also catching contextual errors, improving your vocabulary, and suggesting style improvements. To download Grammarly today, go to getgrammarly.com/W2M Network. Again, getgrammarly.com/W2M Network to download Grammarly for free. To that point, the pandemic started, and Trolls was immediately pulled from the theaters, Trolls World Tour, and was made available for PVOD. And as the lockdown started across the United States, I would say that movie for a lot of families was the right movie at the right time. And I think had they released SpongeBob Sponge on the Run POV in America in the midst of the pandemic, I think the argument could have been made for, hey, this is, we if you think about all the Damn You Hollywoods we did last year during that period, almost all of them were kids movies. A lot of them were on Disney Plus. That was just what was available to us at the time. And who really wanted to be digging into serious pieces in the midst of the lockdown before after it started to let up and things got a little bit better, that argument might change. But I would say between March and August, movies like SpongeBob, Sponge on the Run, and Trolls, and a lot of the Disney Plus stuff are, as a lot of the critics said, probably what we all needed at the time.
And yeah, we still had to suffer through the amazing Ivan and Artemis Fowl.
Well, they weren't all good. I will say that. All right, that's it. That's our review for the evening. This week we did, Alexis and I reviewed Extraction on Netflix, which was an adaptation of the graphic novel Ciudad by Andy Parks, developed by the Russo brothers of Avengers fame. We reviewed Raya and the Last Dragon. Chris Bailey and I reviewed AEW Revolution, or AEW Happy New Year, however you want to... Happy Chinese New Year, however you want to call it. Jesse and I reviewed A Day to Remember. Next week is St. Patrick's Week, all week long on the Radulich and Broadcasting Network. Yes, kiss us all, because we're Irish for a whole week. We're kicking things off with Grimm Fairy Tale St. Patrick's Day Special 2013. Robert Winfrey and I will review The Irishman. Jesse Starcher and I...
Assuming he finally finished watching it by then.
Yeah, if he ever finishes watching all 120,000 hours of it, we will eventually review The Irishman. And then myself and Jesse Starcher will review Fiddler's Green, 3 Cheers for 30 Years. And then Jesse, not playing into the St. Patrick's Day gimmick, is doing his own thing. On Thursday, there'll be an Unspoken Issues with Dean Compton discussing the very last of the initial Transformers series from Marvel, Transformers number 80, featuring the Pretenders and whatnot. So that's it. That's what I got going on. Go ahead and do your plugs, and we'll get out of here.
Yeah, sorry you won't have me next week, but don't worry. I'll be back before you can say, why did she cruelly abandon me like that? I was going to work that quote in somehow.
I was going to say, when the week after St. Patrick's Week, you're on a bunch of shows. You're on Avengers, Vision and the Scarlet Witch, A Year in the Life, Zack Snyder's Justice League, and WandaVision, along with 900 other people.
Yeah, pretty much. All right, Honeysuckle Rose Creations. Fashion meets fandom at the intersection of geek and chic. We're in the middle of talking with some conventions that are going virtual. We are not ready to go back on the road yet, but we may be getting some advertising with some of these virtual cons. We're working with them to see what that entails and what we need to do. Just stay tuned to our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Once we know a little bit more, we will be happy to post and let you guys know. In the meantime, our stores are still open on Etsy and Handmade at Amazon with all of our classic goodies, and we're adding a few more things in because it's that time of the month, and if I don't make something new, I go stir crazy. We are adding Hawkeye earrings. We are adding a Wizard of Oz charm bracelet. We are adding a hair barrette inspired by Raya and the Last Dragon, which I do believe, Mark, your daughter has already said she wants one.
Yep.
And, of course, we still have our favorites. We have our Wanda and Vision Scrabble tile chokers. We have our wire wrap dice. We have our Krabby Falls third journal earrings. I cannot keep those in stock. So go ahead and head to our shops. Again, they are at Etsy and Handmade at Amazon. Honeysuckle Rose Creations. Fashion meets fandom at the intersection of geek and chic.
All right, folks, thanks for listening to Damn You Hollywood. She's Alexis Hejna. I'm Mark Radulich. Be well, be safe, and behave.